In this episode of The By the End of the Dog, I'm joined by Nadiya Prokopyeva for an important and deeply moving conversation about the realities of living and working with dogs during wartime in Ukraine. Nadiya is a dog trainer originally from Ukraine who now lives in Romania, and she shares firsthand insights into how war has impacted not only the people of Ukraine, but also the dogs who share their lives. Throughout our conversation, we explore the behavioral challenges dogs face in a country experiencing ongoing conflict, including increased anxiety, noise sensitivity, sleep deprivation, and the ripple effects of chronic stress on both dogs and their guardians. Nadiya also talks about the strain on veterinarian training resources, as well as the realities of helping reactive dogs during air raid sirens and bomb shelter evacuations, and how Ukrainian trainers are adapting their approaches to help dogs and people navigate incredibly difficult circumstances. Nadiya holds CSAP-BC and KPA-CTP certifications and specializes in separation anxiety, aggression, reactivity, and general behavior concerns. She's currently a veterinary student on track to become a rehabilitation and orthopedic specialist, and is also a student of Galen myotherapy. Nadiya uses low frustration, force-free, science-based training methods and creates Ukrainian language educational content focused on ethical breeding, backyard breeder awareness, and responsible dog ownership. Before we get started, if you're looking to learn more about helping dogs with aggression, head on over to aggressivedog.com. For pet professionals, check out the Aggression in Dogs Master Course, which is the most comprehensive course available on aggression cases, packed with expert instruction and continuing education credits. For dog guardians, you also find Real Life Solutions, a practical course designed to help with common challenges like leash reactivity and dog-to-dog aggression. You can also join the Ultimate Access membership for just $29 per month, which includes access to expert webinars, live mentor sessions, and exclusive discounts. And don't forget to check out the Canis Conference happening this October in Schaumburg, Illinois, which is going to be the world's largest conference dedicated to dog behavior, training, science, veterinary care, dog sports, scent work, and shelter and rescue. Now, let's get into this powerful conversation with Nadiya. Hey everyone, welcome back to The By the End of the Dog. This is a very special episode because we're going to be focusing on the impacts of war. And at the time of this recording, it is March 5th, 2026, and a new war has just started. And I'm not sure when this episode will be launched, but hopefully it's not still ongoing at the time of the release of this episode. But I do think it's so important to focus on the impacts of war on not only dogs, but the humans in their lives as well. So I have the amazing Nadiya Prokopyeva here with me, who is a trainer from the Ukraine, currently living in Romania, but is very intimately aware with what is going on in Ukraine and the impacts on the lives of dogs and their people. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so honored for you to be here and so grateful for you to be here to be able to share these stories. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. So you're a trainer from the Ukraine. Tell us sort of your background a little bit, and then how the last few years have been since February 24th of 2022.
Sure. So I'm a holistic dog trainer. I am very interested in behavior modification with emphasis on diet, orthopedics, and physiotherapy, as well as management, actual behavior modification. So everything what goes into a dog. I have adopted this approach not as long ago, probably back in 2023, and I have been a dog trainer for just a little bit of time. So probably since 2020 to 2021, somewhere there I have started, and I have started as a obedience dog trainer, but rather not like obedience as you can imagine it, so IGP and all that fancy stuff, but rather a home obedience. So just making sure that the dog knows its tricks, knows how to lie down, and how just basically to behave, but not like behavior modification, but just something very simple. And later I started going into a little bit of KPA Academy. Also, I started being a student of Julia Naismith. So I started working with separation anxiety, aggression, and then later a couple of bite cases started bleeding through and stuff like that. So basically, everything that was going in my way was there. And yes, I'm originally from a very small city in Ukraine called Chernivtsi. It's in the western part of Ukraine, so not that much affected by war. And by that much, I mean we don't have any, close to none, zero to none missile attacks or drone attacks, not as much for sure as Kyiv, Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, Chernihiv, any other of the central to eastern parts of Ukraine. But still, the life everywhere in Ukraine is affected by war, by many different reasons and by many different ways. Obviously, people where there are active attacks have it the hardest. They have the most amounts of electricity. Turns out they have the biggest amounts of actual attacks, discomfort. They are very sleep deprived. This winter was probably the hardest and the heaviest of all 4 years that the war has been going on. And because we had the lowest temperatures in the apartments. So some of my friends had as low as 5 degrees Celsius in their apartments. So almost freezing point of water. And it was the middle of the day, the middle of the night. They were wearing their jackets at home and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a little bit of a slightly depressing introduction, I guess, but we have to work with what we have.
And now from where your location now, you are taking on clients remotely and working and probably talking to other trainers as well. So what are people seeing in their work with dogs and also their experiences in observing the dogs and how it's impacting them?
Well, it's a lot. It's a lot from many different perspectives. So, first of all the compromised dogs are even more compromised. So all the dogs that have separation anxiety, that have aggression and reactivity, they are even more compromised right now because of severe trigger stacking and sleep deprivation and noise phobia. So a lot of things are happening at once. We have a lot of owners who are probably, they were never meant or they never wanted that to be the primary care provider. And what I mean by that is a lot of male owners who were primary care providers, they went as soldiers to war. Women became primary care providers for those dogs, and they never intended to be. So a lot of unexpected things like this happened that you would never think like, hey, my husband is going to war. I need to take care of the household, the animals, the kids, and everything. Also, in the industry itself, so if we're talking about vets, if we're talking about behavior veterinaries, if we're talking about dog trainers altogether, a lot of my friends and colleagues are severely burned out. They have so much burnout fatigue that I could never humanly, I never imagined it was humanly possible to have that much. And because of that, a lot of people are quitting the industry. For instance, I know a couple of really good vets, the vets that I vetted for, they were my first round to go, that I would go to. And they quit the industry because of burnout fatigue, because of everything that was happening, and they couldn't take it anymore. And when those people are gone, someone needs to replace them. And there are not many that could replace them in such a short period of time. So basically, the war is affecting every single part. And that mechanism cannot work properly anymore.
What was life like before February of 2022? Can you tell me a little bit about the general lifestyle of dogs and how, compared to other countries, they're more restricted, or they're more common to see in cafes and restaurants and public transportation, and the amount of, I guess, dog ownership, because some countries you see less dogs being kept as pets. And so what was it like before?
So obviously, I'm going to say that Ukraine is one of the best countries that I have seen in terms of dog ownership. And I'm going to say it humbly because in the last couple of years, a lot of Ukrainian dog trainers worked really hard to educate the general owners about the dogs, about their needs, about whatever is there to make the dog happy. And we have so many great small businesses that make custom Y and H shaped harnesses for the dogs, and they're like cute. They come in all shapes and colors, and we have a lot of dog friendly places. For instance, in my dog group that I often sit in, like dog chat, we have a cute French bulldog that often goes to a supermarket in a small trolley cart, and it's just so cute. And basically, you would expect a lot of people to own dogs. A lot of people had dogs. A lot of people were considering them as family members, and the dogs were basically welcome in a lot of places. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna be like, yeah, it's all rainbows and butterflies. We still had some problem with homeless dogs. So we are a country that has homeless dogs, like all about. So not just like in shelters. And also we have some problem with people who own dogs for guarding. So who live outside private home residence and just in the yard. So probably not a lot of needs covered there, and probably not the best dog life from a dog person perspective, but still a lot of people were trying to make their dogs happy, and they were trying to fulfill all the needs, and they were doing really great doing so.
And then things, of course, shifted so suddenly. And you mentioned some of the issues, noise phobias and anxiety and stress, lack of sleep. So what are some of the things, maybe you can actually share a couple of the cases where you've worked because of whether it's noise phobia or heightened stress or aggression that's come out of this. What are some cases you can share with us?
So the one I can think about right now is a lot of clients who have reactive dogs. Well, basically, war is nightmare for everyone, but war is nightmare for them specifically because every time we have missile attacks or drone attacks, a lot of people need to go to basically bunkers. So like bombshell bunkers, or like they are usually underground. So like metro stations, subway stations, or underground parkings of private residents. So think of that way. And you have a lot of people together, a lot of people and animals together, because like Ukrainians, they love their pets. They would bring their cats, they would bring their dogs, they would bring their hamsters, parrots. So every family member is there in those underground bunkers, and they are tight. Like it's not that you can get it. You have a chance to get a room, or like you get a chance to have like private residence down there. No, it's packed like a pack of sardines. And imagine adding a reactive dog to that mixture.
Yes.
Like if you have a client with a reactive dog, and it doesn't matter at this point because you have dogs, cats, you have everything. You have bunnies there, you have males, females, you have all the triggers of a dog in that space. And now you have a client with a reactive dog, and that client is sitting on 12th story building or like in 15th story building and thinking, hey, am I willing to risk my life and actually go with my reactive dog there? Or do I slightly have hopes and prayers that they're not gonna hit my building today and I can just sit here in a bathroom and with my dog? Because not a lot of people are willing to leave their reactive dog in an apartment that might be striked with a drone or a missile and just go downstairs in the basement themselves. So that is one of the things that we have seen a lot. And with a lot of dogs, especially smaller dogs, it is easier to manage because you can get creative with the blocked carriers and stuff like that. But with larger dogs, it is harder. And then you are gonna play in a lot of games that are not gonna yield very nice prices if you're not gonna do it long term. And also, from a perspective, because obviously we know that dogs can smell hormones really well. And imagine the cortisol cloud the dog is entering down there. Like you have all the people who are anxious, who are sitting there with their animals. The animals are anxious. And you have all the people who are worried because they're not sure if their grandma made it to the basement. Maybe they're not sure if their mother made it to the basement. So in other parts of the city or other parts of Ukraine, and you have this huge cortisol cloud, and you have a reactive dog that goes down there and it's reactive altogether, and then it smells the cortisol. Oh my God. It's just horrible. So this is one of the things that has been happening a lot.
How often in a big city is that happening to the average person where they have to go run to seek shelter? And then when that happens, how long do they typically stay there with their dog?
Honestly, in Kyiv with this winter, almost every night.
Wow.
Almost every night. And the attack can end in 4 hours. It can go on for the whole night. And sometimes you get, the worst part of it, you can get siren at 1 a.m. And then they're going to say, hey, you're all free to go. You can go upstairs. It's 2 a.m. We don't expect any more drones right now. And then 2:07, you're going to be like, hey, it's time to go downstairs because we are expecting even more attacks. And then you'll be like there till 3 a.m. trying to have a bit and a cram of sleep on I don't know, a cardboard or a sleeping bag, or if you're in your car, then some people have the underground parkings where they are allowed to keep their cars and they can sleep in their cars. So that's a better situation. So yeah, then you try to cram as much sleep as you can in those couple of hours, and they're going to say, hey, you can go upstairs again. And then you'll go upstairs. And then in a couple of more hours, they're like, hey, we're expecting another missile attack. So if you can please kindly go downstairs. So it can actually be from once a week to a couple of times a week. So it's not like once a month. It's like fairly often. Because a lot of people, when they hear about like drone attacks or missile attacks to the capital city, to Kyiv, they would imagine, hey, it's probably like once a winter or like once a month. Why are Ukrainians complaining? No. It's happening almost every night. Like almost every night throughout the night, sometimes during the day, but rarely it's closer to night. So you can imagine that most of the people and pets are chronically sleep deprived, because even if you can get a little bit of sleep in the bunker, it's not that good of a quality sleep, because probably you can have a couple of people who are heavy sleepers who are snoring. You probably can have a couple of small kids who are crying. So like imagine your typical apartment complex all slammed down in a sort of big-ish room, but still they're all together. And every single problem is there. And it's not just animals who have problems there, like people have problems there too. So yeah, typically your average human being just crammed in a very small place. And you can imagine that some of the skyscrapers in Kyiv, they're fairly large. They have hundreds and thousands of flats. So yeah, that's a lot of people and a lot of pets and a lot of kids and everything all together.
And you already mentioned the strain on resources, meaning the humans that can help, the veterinarians, the trainers, and everybody just experiencing so much stress. How has it impacted other resources? So, let's say the nutrition for the dogs, is that difficult, or is that compounding things where it's hard to find medications or things like that for just everyday survival?
Well, in terms of behavior vets, we don't have many. There are two that I could vet for and with whom I work. But I don't imagine that we get many more than that. So if we have 10, I'll be surprised. And we are a nation of 40 million people? And a lot of dogs. And that's just 10 people who are covering all their needs. And at war, all of those dogs have needs. All of those dogs are compromised, even if they were great dogs who wouldn't need a behavior vet before. So we were not equipped for that. In terms of food and other resources, well, obviously we have our national currency that has gone up in terms of USD to UAH, so Ukrainian hryvnia, our currency. It has gone down, so the prices have gone up. So if you have salary in USD in dollars, then you are probably okay-ish, but if you had salary in hryvnias, then everything has gone expensive, and basically the money that you're earning is less now. And that's one other thing. I don't think we have that much of a problem getting medications. Although we do have some shortages of triazole and fluoxetine, but they are like, you can still get them. It's not that big of a deal. And in terms of food, I think we have had some of the name brands that were harder to find, especially when it was the beginning of war, like the first couple of months. Everything was very sacred. Like you could not lay your hands on a good bag of dog food, or if your dog was eating those wet dog formulas and you only had a few. Well, tough luck. Now you need to find something that your dog is going to eat and not going to die from that, because probably the people who ship those, they haven't shipped them to Ukraine in quite some time. And when the war only begun, people were feeding basically everything that they could find. Dogs with allergies were fed food that basically contained their allergen simply because the food wasn't scarce. But as of right now, I think Ukraine is doing fairly well with so that we don't have any food shortages. And in terms of that, it is okay-ish. It is harder in the occupied parts of Ukraine, who are currently in control by the Russia terrorist state. But overall, it has not been fairly tragic. It's okay-ish.
Do you see people sacrificing in certain areas? Because, in the US, they say one of the only industries that's sort of recession proof is the pet industry, because people will continue to pay for their stuff for their pets and sacrifice their own needs. Are you seeing that same? Obviously, there's sacrifice already occurring, but are you seeing that kind of dynamic where people are foregoing other things so they can get the vet care or so they can buy the dog's food? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, Ukrainians are very proud people, and they're very resilient people, and they're trying to make sure that everything what they had before war still happens for them and for their pets. So in that terms, people are still buying toys for their dogs, even if the toys are a little bit less expensive. They're still trying to provide the best care. I wouldn't say that our vet care for the dogs is expensive-ish, especially if you need something of a higher scale, like MRIs or X-rays or surgeries that can still be expensive and can still run to a high number. But altogether, people are still doing very well for their dogs. They are providing good care, whatever they can afford. They're doing that, and all the dogs are tick and flea work, like they have the meds that provide the ticks and fleas. They have all the fancy colors and all the fancy toys, and a lot of also Ukrainian made gear. And it's very honorable that our people who still have a lot of troubles, they are just trying their best to support small businesses and smaller businesses that are making those toys and that are making those types of gears and harnesses and collars. And we have fairly great leash production. Like, I have been to so many like working dog shops and stuff like that, and I have probably owned for my dogs all the name brands that you can find, and Ukrainian leashes are very good. Like, and those dog parents are still trying to provide everything what's best for their dogs. So it's, again, Ukrainians are very proud people in that manner. So, and Ukrainian dogs are very proud too. And they're trying to sustain that lifestyle that they had before war as much as possible. Obviously with some compromises and some struggles, but still.
Are you seeing dogs being given up on? So because of behavior issues, we tend to see kind of spikes depending on what's happening in society in the world at the time. But, typical, like in the US, the post-holiday puppy, people getting puppies for Christmas, and they end up realizing they're too much work. So a lot of them end up in the shelter. Have you seen that in the last 4 or 5 years? It'd be about 3 years. People are saying, okay, my dog's behavior issues are too much and they're being given up on. Or are you seeing any of that?
I wouldn't say that I have seen an increase. So whatever it was before the war, it probably stayed somewhat around the same. Obviously, we had some crises when the war just started and a lot of people were trying to flee. But a lot of borders opened, so you don't need any documentation to bring the dog with you. but still, we had some increase in that. So when people were trying to flee, especially those places that were heavily bombed, they would bring the dog to western part of Ukraine, which was slightly safer, and they would leave it there, or they would give it up to a shelter there, or somewhat between that lines. But altogether, they were trying to, if they were immigrate or like exiting Ukraine, they were trying to immigrate to a different country. Not immigrate. Immigrating is a bad word for this, but flee Ukraine. And they were mostly taking their dogs with them. Obviously, when the war started and there was a slight crisis, the shelters were a little bit overflowing. But right now, I mean, shelters overflowing is an issue everywhere in every country all the time. It seems like you don't get enough shelters altogether. But I think right now it is manageable-ish.
What about the street dogs that are there, or dogs that aren't necessarily owned by anybody? What have you seen a shift in that? Are they fleeing out of certain areas, or they're behaving differently in certain areas, or kind of moving away from locations that they might feel unsafe? I know it's probably difficult to even know that, but in your anecdotal observations, or maybe even stories or people that you've talked to, have you witnessed any of that?
Well, we have volunteers who would go to basically places which are either occupied or that are closer to the war border, and they would rescue dogs from there. So we have special services, special volunteering services that anyone can donate to, that they go to the regions that are closer to Russia, and they are bringing dogs from there. We also, some of the shelters have no fault give up, so you can go to the shelter. If you feel that the dog is a burden to you, you can try to they can try to find a foster parent for the dog or a new adoptive parent. In terms of actual street dogs, we still have a lot of volunteers who would go and basically do the rescue and release. So they would rescue the dog, they would make sure that the dog is healthy-ish, that the dog is spayed, and then they would release the dog to the place where they would find it if the dog is not adoptable, or if it might be a problem to adopt it, but at least we will not get new puppies. And with all that, and especially with a lot of households that were bombed on the eastern part of Ukraine, there are a lot of homeless dogs there, where there are active bombings and active shootings right now, sort of like where the war lies right now. And there we have an increase of rabies, which is very unfortunate, because you have a lot of rabies infected and cats and dogs. And it is one of the fears for our soldiers. So not only bullets and not only drones and not only missiles, but also rabies is a fear in our war right now, because we have in that areas, I would say we have an increase in rabies. And also, we don't particularly see the dogs that are roaming around, but when the dogs find groups of soldiers, obviously it's human contact and they are trying to stick together. So soldiers often would bring presents to their wives and husbands. So they would bring a new cat or a new dog home after the deployment, or when they have a short vacation at home. And I personally have a lot of friends who have gotten their cat that way, and have gotten their dog that way. So yeah, they try to bring some sort of a life souvenir, and they usually have a couple of animals around just to lift the spirit, because obviously the tension there and the mental tension there, you're being at war at one of the probably, I think I can safely say that it is the longest war of the last century. I'm not a historian at that point, but I think that at some point we had a check mark that Ukrainian war has been longer than the World War II. So yeah, basically you are trying to relieve the tension as much as you can, and by having animal around and by animal having a human around, it kind of slightly goes away.
It's almost like a story of domestication coming back, right? And helping each other, the two different species helping each other. I just want to back up to the rabies aspect too. Was that something that was going on before? Or was it mostly eradicated, or you didn't hear about too many cases before? Is this kind of a sudden spike, so to speak?
Well, we are slightly-ish country. Like if you look at, on the map of Europe, we are one of the countries with a higher risk of rabies, so it's not like huge. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that an average European country, obviously it can vary from country to country, but they would require a rabies vaccination once every 3 years. In Ukraine, we would require a rabies vaccination once every year. It's still the same vaccine, but since we have a higher spike of like a higher case ratio of rabies per capita, then we just have like we try to stay on the safer side. So I'm not gonna pretend that it was under control. I mean, it was under control, but I'm not gonna pretend that it was like perfect before that. But still, we had an increase, and that was an unexpected thing because obviously some animals are left behind. Some animals are breeding in the wild closer to where war lies, and those animals are not like they're not domesticated. They don't have an owner. They don't have a pet parent, and they don't have their shots, obviously. So they are at a higher risk of getting rabies from a wild animal, and obviously they are still domestic-ish animals, so they are trying to reach for human contact, and when they are affected with rabies, obviously it is not an optimal scenario for anyone.
Yeah, it's one of the things that gets forgotten about in times of war is the disease and how those things can be impacted. I do want to talk about puppies next, but first we're going to take a little break to hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. What if there was a way to help both shelter animals and veterans struggling with emotional trauma by engineering a powerful, near instantaneous bond between them? That's exactly what Pets for Vets, a nonprofit focused on positive reinforcement for animals and veterans, is designed to do. Pets for Vets' unique program model creates a super bond, which is a carefully crafted, professionally trained version of love at first sight that leads to a lasting connection between a veteran and a shelter animal. Because each animal is evaluated and selected to match the veteran's specific personality, lifestyle, and emotional needs, the result is a reciprocal, healing relationship. The organization, founded by Clarissa Black, is expanding its network of highly skilled, well-qualified positive reinforcement trainers. It offers an incredibly rewarding opportunity for trainers who grow professionally, enjoy flexible schedules, receive stipends, and can live anywhere in the United States. Pets for Vets is also seeking new collaborations with animal shelters and rescue organizations across the U.S. to help us find the right dogs. To learn more or get involved, visit petsforvets.com. All right, we're back, and we were talking about puppies just before we took that break and the impact, because, this again, we're going on 4 years, and we've had, of course, lots of litters in those 4 years. And so talk us through what you're seeing there, whether it's through the socialization period or in utero, or, talk us through the impacts there, because clearly I'm sure it's having profound impacts on long-term behavior and really the epigenetics of the dogs that are living there. So tell us what you're seeing.
So first of all, it's obviously a very complicated situation, because you want to look at it from various different perspectives. And obviously, a lot of the listeners of the podcast probably know that if a mother of puppies while pregnant experiences stress, those stress some of the cortisol cannot be filtrated very well through the in utero barrier, and they can still end up in a puppy. And that is not an optimal scenario that is unfortunately happening in Ukraine. And I think I found roughly around 30-ish studies about the cortisol in puppies and what it can cause, especially like the higher risk of reactivity and yada, yada, yada. But still, they were not as well documented as they are currently now in Ukraine, because of it is an worldwide tragedy that is affecting everyone. It is also affecting dogs. And you get a lot of different insights, one of which is a lot of ethical breeders know about that. So they are very icky about producing new leaders, and they're trying to move closer to at least Western Ukraine, if not to move abroad. They are also a little bit iffy about bringing new dogs to Ukraine because of the adjustments and everything that needs to be done. So yeah, a lot of ethical breeders are like it's a tragedy for an ethical breeders, because if they are closer to Eastern area and they haven't left, they are either trying not to produce any leaders because they are aware of what it can end up in, and on the other hand, the backyard breeders are prosperous. They are breeding every year, every dog that they have. It is somewhat a tragedy from a dog breeder perspective, or like from puppy perspective, because first of all, you don't have good dogs when they are bred in such conditions. And also it is very heavily dependent on what is going on, because there are still a lot of respected breeders, ethical breeders, who are trying their best to still maintain their lines, and they're still trying to give Ukrainians the best puppies that they can. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people who don't. And obviously there are much, much more ethical breeders who stopped producing rather than backyard breeders who never stopped producing. And now that the market is open, they're trying to produce even more. But yeah, we still have dog shows. We still have confirmation shows. People are still heavily in sports. So they're trying to do as much sport with their dog, and they're trying to participate in as many competitions as they can in order to maintain their dog's basically sport regime, and as well as beauty of a dog itself. So that is the problem number one. The next problem is you obviously are trying to think that you don't want to start at a -3 level if you're usually starting at 0. And everyone who is in a city where the drones attacks and the missile attacks are often, they are starting at a -3 level, because they cannot give their dog a good sleep, because they cannot sometimes they cannot still give their dogs like fulfillment of all the dog behaviors and stuff like that. So the duality of this situation, because obviously there are a lot of people who are on the verge, they are feeling, and they're absolutely right to feel that way, that they are on the verge of death. And they are like, hey, I really wanted to have a dog all my life. My biggest dream was to have a dog. And who am I to say, hey, maybe not now. Maybe not if you are in Kyiv. Maybe right now is not the best time for that. So you have that problem. And again, who am I to stop them from their lifelong dream? Because in Ukraine, you never know that those people might not be alive tomorrow. I hope they are alive and well tomorrow, but they might not. And you have to be honest, basically. And that is I really don't like being negatively truthful. I like being truthful, but I don't like telling the bad and the ugly of the truth. So you end up with like, hey, you do want to support Ukrainian breeders, but they're very little right now, and we have troubles with providing good sires and dams from abroad, because not a lot of breeders from Europe or other country, like other places in the world, are willing to bring their dog to have a mating in Ukraine, or like vice versa, where their puppies or the part of their dog is going back to Ukraine. And you have that point. You have the point of people like, hey, I always dreamed to have a dog. The other point, you have the point of like, yeah, I need to be truthful, but still that also causes fatigue. And that is like the least of the problems, right? My fatigue of saying, hey, maybe right now is not the best time to have a dog, but still it is, because puppy consults for people who want to have a puppy were one of the most fun times for me, and they're not anymore, because you still need to explain all the negative parts that they're going to deal with, simply because they're at a disadvantage and the dog might be compromised. And then you also can have various parts of the nice, the bad, and the ugly. So if you have a nice dog that is going to a western part of Ukraine that is not that heavily attacked, then you might be just fine. But if you get a backyard bred dog who has cortisol puppy syndrome, and who whose epigenetics is going to play against you, and the environment is playing also against you, and now you are at a very, very big disadvantage. And I don't think that those people are going to enjoy those dogs as much as they want to, because there's always this break of an ideal dog. Like you want a dog and you always imagine that this dog has some sort of meaning to you. This dog has a character. This dog has a hole in you that it might close. And when people are getting dogs, they are a little bit, oh my God, my dog poops. Oh my God, my dog pees. My dog needs to get their enrichment and walk even when I'm sick. Or if I broke my arm, that's nasty. And then you get on top of that, we're like, hey, now you have a backyard bred dog in Ukraine, and its epigenetics is not the best. The environment is not the best. And you have a reactive dog with separation anxiety who is reacting every trigger. And you also trigger stacking with noise phobias and with the fact that you need to bring that sad dog into the bunker.
Oh, so many thoughts I have on this. And I want to ask, obviously, the stress and the noise of war is going to impact even the best, most resilient dogs. Have you witnessed anything where some of the puppies, because they were born in that environment, were habituated to it? They're like, oh, okay, this is just part of my world. And obviously those are probably the far and few between, but have you witnessed that at all, where suddenly you're seeing some that are just like, oh, this is just part of everyday routine here, for me as a puppy, because I was born and raised here?
Yes, some are. So we, at that point, I'm a little bit subjective and biased, obviously, because I'm a behavior mod trainer and I only see that perspective. So it would be unfair of me to say, hey, I have never seen a decent dog that habituated to all the environments in Ukraine right now. But I have. Yes, I have. Those are slightly more rare, I would say, especially, again, I'm being completely honest here, I am biased in this point. And I am biased in my own subjectives, basically because I don't deal with those dogs as much. But yeah, you do end up with those dogs. And if those dogs end up resilient, they are fabulous. Like if those dogs can still be so great in an everyday war, oh my God, those dogs are some great dogs. They are great dogs. So before, like a couple of years earlier, I was a little bit iffy about like, hey, I think we need to ban all the breeding in Ukraine. I don't think it's fair to breed all the dogs. I don't think it's fair. I think we need to consider probably like a ban on breeding because, again, of the problems that I mentioned earlier, that all the ethical breeders are stopping altogether and all the backyard breeders are continuing. But still, those dogs that are resilient enough to be great, basically at war, they are great dogs. And on topic of great dogs, we have a lot of great rescue and search dogs. We probably have right now some of the best rescue and search dogs in all around the world, because they are getting so much unfortunate experience almost every day that they are one of the probably best canines that you can ever imagine in that sphere. And I am probably very honored to say that, and also not so humble to say that, but I think it is true. And again, we have a lot of search and rescue teams, some at national level or like governmental level, but some and most are volunteer based. So we have this huge team called Antares, and if I'm not mistaken, they're female owned and females, basically the female built, and they have great canines. You would always see those dogs in pictures, and they are beautiful dogs who are doing spectacular job in finding those who have survived or unfortunately had not survived the missile attacks. And and we also have a lot of national dogs that are lifting national spirit. We have this famous dog, I'm not sure if you know about that, we have this famous Jack Russell Terrier called Patron the dog. It's a nice looking Jack Russell Terrier who's been very popular. It has been in kids' cartoons, and that's basically a bomb dog. So that Jack Russell Terrier Patron, which in English, the English translation of his name would be Bullet. So Bullet, Patron, would go to the fields where you would have tank mines and all the other troop mines, and he would basically sniff them out and find those that haven't been detected and haven't detonated, and soldiers would come and dig them out. And he's like a national hero. You would probably hear kids singing songs about Pest Patron. We have cartoons about Pest Patron. We have a lot of like actual songs for adults about Pest Patron. So yeah, it's those dogs that are spectacular, gosh, they are spectacular even at war.
Yeah. I was just thinking that as you were saying it, those are the dogs we want to reproduce that are going to be so resilient to that type of environment. So on that note, let's talk about what, especially in your work, what are you typically doing to help these dogs? You get contacted, a dog with noise phobia or increased aggression or the separation anxiety, which you also specialize in. So I guess talk us through the most common issues you're seeing and what you do, and then what other trainers are doing, and the veterinarians. I know you had mentioned meds earlier, and I'm sure that's an important part of the picture. But yeah, take us through a few of the variables and the types of cases you're seeing.
So currently, because of the trigger stacking and because of the environment, we have a lot of dogs with various types of reactivity. We have dogs who have separation anxiety and who are specifically anxiously connected to their owners. So the separation anxiety has increased, unfortunately. And generally, it has a lot to do with actual behavior modification, so actual protocols, but at war, you wouldn't do anything without management. So we heavily rely on management, especially those dogs who are lucky to be is not probably the best way to say it, but those owners who have underground parkings and they have cars, this is more manageable situation for them. And we try to set up crates there. We try to do relaxation mats. We try to basically make it as calm of experience it can be. And we do a lot of training outside of the sirens and outside of the attacks. So the dogs still know that it is a safe place. They're going there to chill. Nothing extraordinary is happening there. A lot of habituation is happening that way, which again, probably is in this worst case scenario, the best case scenario. But we also have a lot of owners who are using CBD oils for anxiety. But honestly, personally, I wouldn't say that for most people it is that effective. I would say that it is slightly more effective and it is more heavily researched in terms of pain management, but not as much of in an anxiety episodes. So yeah, we have that. I work with some behavior vets that are prescribing medications when it is needed. And some dogs only require situative medication. So they would need to take a couple of pills for a couple of weeks and their nervous system is back to normal and they can still live their life because we regulated their nervous system using drugs. Some dogs, unfortunately, are prescribed medication for long-term use. Yeah, basically, I would try to work the dog to see how well it responds to management and training, and some contra-conditioning protocols, desensitization protocols. And if we don't get a fast enough and a good enough response, then we're also going through the course of meds that obviously are prescribed not by me, but by a vet professional. But yeah, the thing is, from a dog training perspective, we have a problem that we're not preparing from some theoretical scenario. We're not preparing for for something that might happen in the future. And we know that we have 4 weeks until the vet visit. Let's try to slam as much cooperative care as we can. We are dealing with very changing situations every day. We're dealing with people who might lose a home and their dog might need to go through a round of changing locations and relocations and adjusting to a new place and stuff like that. We're dealing with dogs, again, who have had separation anxiety to begin with, but right now it's getting even worse because of the anxious type of attachment to their owner. And if we're thinking that way, we also are getting some types of problems that you would never even imagine to have in the 21st world century, because we are dealing with some dogs that are iffy about the clothes, and then you have almost freezing temperature inside an apartment, and the dog needs to basically walk in that hoodie that it hates for 24 hours all the time because it's cold, and the dog is a French bulldog or any Italian greyhound. So whatever you can imagine in this scenario would be that. So you get a lot of basically unpredictable and something that you cannot prepare for situations that you need to think on your toes and try to act quick, because you don't get to create a detailed 4-week plan to solve the problems, and management is getting at some point unattainable. Like you cannot manage war. You cannot manage war. Yes, you can manage it inside as much as you can. You can isolate your windows for as little of sound to come into your apartment. You can get those muffs for your dog to get as little sound as you can. Yes, you can build your dog a safe space with crates and blankets to isolate as much sound and provide the dog with a safe space to panic. So you can do all that. But again, that's not you can control it. That's not like you can, hey, today we're going to lower the volume of sirens because my dog is trying to counter condition to it, right? And today we're going to lower the sound of drones because my dog is afraid of them, and we're trying to counter condition to it. And today we're going to bring only one person to a bunker to get to know them and work on my CAT or BAT or LAT protocol. And then we're going to bring 2 people, and then we're gonna bring 3 people and a dog. That doesn't work like that. You actually need to be very creative with everything that you're doing.
Everything you're saying is so relevant. One of the first things you said in this episode is about being taking the holistic approach. And I was thinking through all the things you're saying. I was kind of just processing, gosh, how difficult it must be, to not know the triggers when they're going to happen, and it's got to be so challenging. And I recognize that is probably one of the most motivating factors in getting burnt out, right? And getting because as trainers, and we can control the environment, and we can get to the goal of, let's say, loose leash walking or whatever, where we don't have war and we don't have that unpredictability. I can just only imagine how frustrating and difficult it is to constantly you're exactly doing that, managing, doing the best you can with the environment, trying to provide the best quality of life in those circumstances for both the human and dog. Yeah, it's got to be so challenging. So I imagine that's the approach many of your colleagues and the trainers there and the behavior vets are taking is, we're going to throw what we can at this to improve the quality of life and put in those moments in the day. But this is not training. That's just in the traditional sense of the word. This is really holistic lifestyle management, right?
Yeah, and a lot of pet owners are very burned out because of that. Like, you have so much pet owner fatigue because of that, because they are constantly managing their lives to stay alive, and then they're constantly managing their dogs' lives for them not to get triggered. Because we that's probably one of the first things that you're gonna learn as a dog trainer, that you don't allow the dog to practice negative behavior. And it's easier said than done, especially in Ukrainian circumstances, because you basically don't have a choice, because you first need to keep yourself alive, and then you don't allow the dog to practice the negative behavior, but you don't know where this negative behavior might come from, because also you get a lot of dogs who they are very anxious when it's dark. And we have a lot of power outages, so that also contributes. And the other thing that I forgot to mention is that a lot of, especially my clients, they are living in apartment buildings. And as of right now, they are better adjusted. So they have their own solar panels, and some of the elevators are still working. But first, 1, 2 to 3 years, and even right now, it's still a problem where you'd get a power outage, and then you would think all of your classical reactivity cases, life hacks that you would give to your clients, hey, if you live in an apartment building and a lot of people are taking the elevator and you're living fifth floor or below, you might use the stairs. hey, guess what? Now everyone's using the stairs and it's dark and you get the echo of footsteps and then you get people arising from out of nowhere because it's dark on a very like small and slight corridors there and staircases, and then all of your life hacks that you would get to learn in all those awesome schools, they're flying out the window because now you're dealing with basically real life of a dog owner in Ukraine. And those are the things that are very hard to manage, because you can always say like, yeah, we'll try to manage, but people are managing their dogs for some end goal. And their end goal is to get that behavior modification like solution, right? They're trying to lay their bricks to the path of their ideal dog. And you don't get that when you're training in Ukraine, or not, you don't get that at least as fast, because you get unpredictable triggers from everywhere. You are constantly managing, and always the biggest solution in dog training is the human aspect. And if your humans are burned out, sleep deprived, they are irritated, they don't have power for 24 hours a day, and that might last for like a couple of days, so they don't get to wash their head, they don't get to cook nice meals that they're used to cook. Yeah, you're also dealing with that, which is very, again, Ukrainian people are trying their best. They're very resilient people, and kudos to us / them who are living in Kyiv and Kharkiv and all the big cities. Yeah. But it's still very hard, and it's getting so much fatigue. Like, it's getting so much life out of people. It's basically sucking life out of people to manage all that.
Yeah, and for more than 4 years now, it's just so incredibly challenging. I think my next question for you would be, if you have a message for the world as a Ukrainian dog trainer and behavior consultant, what would it be?
Oh my God, so much pressure on my shoulders.
That's a big question.
But
I know.
I guess you just have to support Ukraine. You need to not forget that we are at war, and from the perspective that I see it, Ukraine is a wall between Russia and Europe, and you always need to not forget that our people and our soldiers are giving our lives to keep peace in Europe, to make sure that the war doesn't extend closer to the perimeter of Europe. Any way in which you can support Ukraine, if you can support separate Ukrainian soldiers and you can find donations for that, that would be awesome. If you can support some of the bigger organizations like United 24, that would be great. If you can still provide the donations to individuals, to small businesses, if you can still buy like Ukrainian clothes from small businesses, because those people with power outages, they're trying to make the best. If you can still buy Ukrainian gear, because again, we have awesome gear. We have some of the best dog gear, humbly I might say, on the market. And we have, on top of my head, we have Darwin, which is harnesses that you can basically purchase, and they're custom made towards your measurements. So they would make custom harnesses, and they would make all the custom adjustments you would like. You also have Lovihav, which is also a very big Ukrainian brand. You also have a lot of very nice Ukrainian-made dog treats, especially like ballistics. We probably have one of the best ballistics production in Ukraine, because they are really, really good. All the dogs love them. I would usually bring those as treats for my clients all around the world when I travel with me, and I have never had a dog decline that ballistic from Ukraine. So yeah. But also, if you have an opportunity to foster or adopt a dog from Ukraine, that would be awesome. If you get to help any of the Ukrainian shelters, and specifically those that are on top of my head are Dogs Adopt Kyiv and Woof Roof, you can do that, because they are volunteers. They're separately standing. They're basically getting all the financial help from the people. And if you can do your research and just find something that you like, because I'm not specifically paid to promote any of the organizations, they're just something that I like and I use. And every time I go from Romania back to Ukraine, I just try to buy as much of useless or useful things that I can, just to keep those money and that cash in Ukraine and in Ukrainian small businesses. And I think that's just awesome. So yeah, if you can help in any way you can, that would be highly appreciated. If you can just share and remember that the Ukraine is still at war and we are fighting every day, and it is very hard for even everyday human being, because often it is very demotivating when you find those videos about like nicely dressed Ukrainians in Kyiv, and people in the comments will be like, yeah, I do I need to remind you that they are at war? Yeah, we are. And we still like to dress well. yeah, we are. And we still like to support our brands. Yeah, we are. And we still like to buy our dogs those nice leashes and those nice collars and those nice harnesses, and live all the life like it was before the war, because I think it keeps the sanity there. It still makes your life like meaningful and important to yourself, at least. But yeah, just keep Ukraine in thoughts and prayers. And if you can do something physical towards help, that would be just awesome.
And I so much appreciate you letting us know about those resources that we can certainly help out. I'll be sure to link to those in the show notes as well, guys. I did want to mention one thing for any trainers or professionals from Ukraine that might be listening to this episode, is that since the start of the war, I've been, myself and my wife, who is Moira Heckenleitner is my wife, and she specializes in separation anxiety as well as noise phobias and things like that. She's a veterinarian, but we've been offering our courses on both aggression, separation anxiety, and the noise phobia for free for anyone that lives in the Ukraine, any trainers or veterinarians that are helping animals and their people out there. So I just want to note that, and that can be found. You can message me, shoot me an email, and I can definitely take care of you. So just want to note that for the listeners, for anybody from the Ukraine. So tell us, where can people find you, and what are you up to next?
Well, basically, I'm currently trying to include physiotherapy in my dog training basically experience and package. So feel free to find me on Instagram. It is just Anteya_K9. And you can also find me on my YouTube channel. We also have that available with a lot of different tips and tricks and whatnot. And yeah, just feel free to reach out if you want a consultation, or if you want to just say kind words, or if you want to find any of those links that I mentioned and to find in which way you can help. That would be also appreciated.
And is your YouTube channel the same as your Instagram handle?
Yes.
And
yes.
So that's going to be ANTEYA_K, the letter K9. So not K9 spelled out, but letter K9. And that's on Instagram, YouTube for you guys. Nadiya, thank you so much. I'm so honored that you came on the show to discuss what's happening in the Ukraine and beyond. And I hope to see you again in the future.
The honor is all mine. Thank you so much for an invitation, and thank you so much for providing this opportunity for me to bring some light onto the issues that Ukraine is currently facing.
It was truly an honor speaking with Nadiya and hearing about the resilience of both the people and dogs living through such difficult circumstances. Her perspective offers a powerful reminder of the deep bond between humans and dogs, and how that relationship continues to provide comfort, purpose, and connection even in the most challenging times. If you'd like to support Ukraine or help the animals affected by the war, be sure to check the show notes, where we've included links to the organizations and resources Nadiya mentioned during the episode. And if you're looking to deepen your understanding of aggression and behavior cases, head over to aggressivedog.com. Whether you're a professional or a dedicated dog guardian, you'll find resources including the Aggression in Dogs Master Course, expert-led webinars, informative articles, and details about the Canis Conference happening this October in Schaumburg, Illinois, with both in-person and virtual options available. And a reminder, if you're a dog training professional or veterinarian in Ukraine, please reach out to me, mike@aggressivedog.com, and I'm offering scholarships to both the master course as well as my wife's noise phobia and separation anxiety courses. So please do reach out if you need any assistance with that. Thanks for listening in, And as always, stay well, my friends.